Welcome back. You're watching The Big Question, and of course, our guest is none other than President Uhuru Kenyatta. Okay, one of the most important things you've always been saying, and it was one of the campaign platforms, was cohesion. You're the President of Kenya now. Do you think you've done enough to bridge the political divide? And how would you really, is there a way you measure whether you have really bridged the political divide?
I think we have, because I think for the first time, and you can talk to a number of politicians from around the country, we are very open. Wherever we travel, we try and engage. We don't go there and say we're going there as Jubilee. Or it is the leadership that people have elected, and we involve them, yeah, in whatever programs that we are undertaking. I'm very clear in the statements that I make, yeah, that we respect the will of people, we respect the decisions that they took in the last election, and we are more than willing to work with those who are elected on different party platforms, because we believe we are one, yeah, and this, to me, is a very important pillar of the Jubilee government. It is the basis on which we came together to try and pull, you know, Kenyans to behave, to work, and to live, yeah, you know, as one. So, right. So for me, I'm not saying that we're there, but definitely, right, we have made major strides in trying to ensure that we bring about cohesion, unity, yeah, amongst the peoples of our country.
How do you say, maybe in one or two ways, how do you bring them on board, people who still are bitter after you won the election?
We bring them on board by, you know, basically saying, look, we're ready to work with you. Right? You've noticed that even when I speak, I very rarely speak about whatever negative aspects. I always say it is their democratic right to speak what they want. But were it my wish, I would prefer if they would come and join us, yeah, and let us focus on the developmental agenda of the country. Let us focus on the economic development of the country. Let us focus on the issues that affect common mwananchi, right? Because ultimately, even if we are going to once again engage in competitive politics in the next 5 years, it shouldn't be on the basis of enmity. Right. Once people have chosen, yeah, there should be no bitterness. We should accept the will of the people, work together, and wait for the next opportunity to once again compete. Yeah. Yeah. And then again, still be able to come back together and move on. Right. Yes.
One of the things critics have been pointing out, would you say it has been reflected in the appointments you have made after being head of state?
I think so. I think so. We have tried as much as possible to be all-encompassing in the limited slots that we have, yeah, to try and involve and engage, you know, as many people. But my argument has always been, let's not necessarily look at just positions, because positions will never be enough, right? Especially with our new constitutional dispensation that limits that. I say that the proof of the eating should be in the developmental agenda around the country, because, you know, you're elected not necessarily to give out or to dish out positions, but to improve the lives of Kenyans, you know, wherever they may be, whether they're in regions that voted for you or not, your ability to deliver, yeah, development to those regions should be the gauge that we use, yeah, to determine that we actually have an inclusive. Focusing, for example, on trying to deal with the sugar issue in Western, which is a national issue, and how are we going to be able to resolve it? Right. Focusing on the plant up in Bungoma, right? And seeing how we're going to be able to reopen it, yeah? So that we can create employment at that level. Right. Focusing on ensuring that we are doing for the pastoral areas in terms of how to improve livestock management, open up markets for them. This, I think, should be what should be gauged to say that we are inclusive in our agenda.
Okay, maybe if I ask you over the last 1 year, because looking at some of the reports from the Public Service Commission and the National Cohesion Commission, talks about 3 most populous communities holding about 49% of the civil service. This is not in any way to mean those people do not know their jobs. But is that something you're concerned about, and is it something you look at? Because most of this did not come under your presidency.
Absolutely.
But over the last 1 year, is there something you have done about it?
Well, like I'm saying, we have tried to reflect that both at the national level and also, you know, in terms of our own cabinet appointees, you know, to reflect the face of Kenya in terms of the PS level as well, and to also send out there that, you know, we also want to ensure we are engaging people on the basis of quality. Who is able? You know, I shouldn't be able to look at you and say that, you know, you're getting this job because you come from that particular. It should be based on your ability, you know, to deliver.
Right.
So we want the face of Kenya, and it must be the face of Kenya, which is something that we ourselves have been articulating.
Right.
But we must also emphasize that the kind of people we want are the people who have the capacity to deliver on the developmental agenda of this nation.
Right. Mr. President, the issue of corruption, you've talked about it before, it's a big problem in this country. First and foremost, again, I'll go back to critics because that is where you measure the opposition and critics. What they've been saying is we have a president who talks, but in terms of corruption, we have not really seen any measures put in place. So they have questioned whether you have the political will to fight corruption as the president.
I think you will see from the number of cases that the anti-corruption body is actually investigating in just our 1 year, where we have refused to interfere, be it, you know them. There are a number of very high-profile cases that are out there, right? And I don't think we have interfered in any way. We have allowed them to proceed, and we have said, let due process be followed. I think this is something you have not seen before. So when they say lack of commitment, we are practically out there doing it. But in terms of advocacy, I must continue to use whatever platform I get to speak against corruption. Because that's part of my job.
Right.
And do everything possible to strengthen the anti-corruption institutions that we have, because they are the ones who must focus themselves on their jobs and to ensure that there is no interference whatsoever from the executive branch.
Right.
Yes.
One of the things you came boldly talking about, we've not seen with leaders in this country or our president, is corruption even in your office. And you went, you know, live on TV and said we have corruption. Well, that is commendable. Some again will look at it as, why would the president say there is corruption in his office? Why can't the president deal with corruption in his office? And how has the president really dealt with it?
For example, in that we have because we're not investigated, but we have made sure, for example, that from the bottom level, all procurement, all people who have been involved in purchasing or tender, we have removed and cleaned out completely from the time I said it. These are things that you can look at. This is practical action that we have taken and ensuring that we have cleaned out at that level completely.
Right. Yeah. And recently there were transfers because of this. Again, critics saying, why don't you just get rid of them together, or get rid of them all together, or investigate them other than transferring them to other ministries?
What I'm saying is the investigation continues. We have given them back to PSC because civil servants, you know, as I've said before, you know, fall under PSC. Investigations are ongoing. I've just said that we want a clean slate in my office, and I need new officers because of precisely what I mentioned, right? And as investigations go on, wherever they've been transferred to, evidence is found, the bodies will take action and will be dealt with wherever they are.
Some of your flagship projects,
I just don't want them in my office.
Right. Some of your flagship projects, the Jubilee administration, the laptop project, the standard gauge railway. Does it concern you that such big projects may be marred, I'll say claims, because investigations are still going on, by claims of corruption, and even delayed right now because 1 year later, because of claims of corruption, children still can't have the laptops?
You know, for me, I look at it very straightforwardly. Well, we want to institute this program. We want it to happen. If there is any irregularity whatsoever, I think you've noticed that we have been patient and said, let the process proceed, right? If indeed there is any claim of impropriety, let it be handled, let it be dealt with, because ultimately what we want is to provide the pledge that we have given to Kenyans, all right? You've not heard us out there going to criticize any of the investors. We have said, proceed, right? But what I want to tell Kenyans, and we must be very careful of, is this problem of every single thing being looked at, oh, there must be corruption, oh, there must be corruption, right? We have not even signed this agreement yet. We are still in the process of negotiating, right? You know, with our Chinese partners. Right. What we are committed to is this, but we in Kenya also must say, you know, we've got to get to a level where we have a level of confidence, in our own ability, without necessarily pointing fingers, you know, everywhere. But all the same, we have said, look, for the sake of transparency and openness, even if it is delaying the program, let it proceed until everybody is satisfied that this indeed
is clean,
is a good and clean project, and let it move forward.
Right. On devolution again, we know when people claim that they want all functions to be devolved to them. Last year in July, I think, the summit you had, and I believe, I remember asking you the same question. You said you wanted to show them that you're not anti-devolution, you wanted, but in hindsight, because of the problems we've had, especially in the health sector and other sectors, the friction, the issue of payrolls, ghost workers inheriting debts from councils by these counties, in hindsight, now that constitutional commissions have been talking about it, don't you think it should just have been staggered the way it was supposed to be for 3 years?
You know, the problem with staggering would have been that, the argument would have been that we are not committed to this, right? The governors themselves, as the chief executives, said they were ready and they wanted these functions transferred. We didn't want to object to that. We did it. Let us continue. Let us struggle with the problems. Let us clear them. In the hope that, you know, within a very short time now, rather than delay, within a short time, we'll be able to clear the problems and be able to focus, you know, as opposed to us having not done it, and then now having this endless agenda. Oh, governors are... Now it's quite clear where they need to go and strengthen their own areas, clean out and do what they have to do. And, and for me, looking at it broadly, I think it makes sense to deal with the problems early, right? Because ultimately, whatever is coming out now would still have had to be
dealt with.
To be dealt with. Let's deal with it. Let's clean through, and ultimately let people begin to understand the full nature of the responsibilities that Kenyans have given them.
Right. Currently, there's a debate on the budgetary allocations for county governments. Governors are proposing about 240 billion. MPs are talking about 218 billion, specifically maybe. What do you think county government should have?
Well, let the debate and the discussion go on. There is the county division of revenue bill that is before both houses of parliament. Let them engage in that debate. And ultimately, we will see what is right. But what I keep saying, we must always remember and focus that development is not about how much you have. It is about what you do, you know, with what you have, right? And we must always recognize, and I think I've said this repeatedly, that we have a limited basket, And yes, you can demand 280, 200, you can demand anything, But we must always look at our ability to generate those resources, because ultimately, if you ask for what is not available, we can only expand the tax base in order to make it available, because that's the only source, you know, of getting revenue. So my appeal has always been, let us just be realistic, let us live within our means, let us not think that we're going to be able to do you know, everything in 1 year. Let us prioritize within the resources that we have. Let us focus on expanding our economy and ultimately our tax base, and we'll get there. But if we think that we're going to do it all in 1 year, we may risk, you know, breaking the camel's back, in an attempt to meet the kind of expectations that we have given the people. We must be realistic. You know, we are trying to make this issue of devolution work. And I think what we need to do is to stop all these side petty things, yeah? And focus on the real issues. Yeah.
Right. Mr. President, the ICC question, we can't go into the case because the case is still going on, but has it been a distraction in your leadership?
Doesn't bother me in the least. I'm moving on, I'm focusing.
You get a time to attend to it.
Those who are dealing with the case have my full confidence. They will proceed. I will proceed with the business of running Kenya, which is what Kenyans expect of me.
Right.
Yeah.
Many critics, of course, again on the ICC keep talking about your relationship with the Vice President and what factor maybe it played into your union to form the Jubilee coalition. Critics
our union, and I have said severally, was not based on our cases. Our unity was based on the fact that we as leaders said that we want to ensure that the kind of problems that we saw reach a peak in 2007, 2008 will never happen again. Okay. Our focus was to ensure the unity of our people, the stability of our country, and that is why amongst the first things that we did was to ensure we put aside enough resources to deal with the kind of challenges that led to the eruption of violence. That is why, this issue of food security, this issue of employment for our young men and women, this issue of title deeds and making sure that we resolve this land question, that's why there are such high priorities on the Jubilee agenda, right? Yeah. Because that was our commitment. As we have always said, and I said then, ICC for me is a personal issue, and it will go away because I strongly maintain, as I have always maintained, not only my innocence, but that of my deputy. So it is a hurdle that will go away, but it is being looked at by those who are responsible
for doing
Mine is to focus myself on the business and the job that Kenyans gave me, and that's what I intend to do.
Right. Mr. President, you don't read newspapers?
Hardly, sometimes.
Sometimes?
Yeah, because, sometimes you people, you blow out things sometimes that are just completely, I fail to understand, by the way. So rather than wake up and read something that makes you annoyed, or just ignore it, look at your schedule, what job do you have for today, so get on with it.
Right, of course I can't speak for every journalist in this country. Some have argued you don't really seem to have tolerance for criticism, and maybe that's why sometimes you run into problems with the media. Especially some even going to question your commitment to press freedom.
I have no problem whatsoever with people, and that's why I'm saying, the fact that I don't myself focus sometimes on what's in them doesn't mean that I'm stopping anybody else from doing so. That's because it's my personal opinion. I don't think there is anywhere where you've heard of me as a government or anybody, going out there saying that close that news station down, close that one down, close that one. No. But just as much as you criticize, and I always welcome positive criticism. What I dislike is negative
criticism.
Negative criticism. Like when, for example, you wake up in the morning and you read a glaring headline that we have had a secret meeting and given General Karangi a new term in office. Doesn't that individual think, what message are you sending out? First and foremost, that the president has broken the constitution, because it is very clear how that procedure is done. Second, there is no truth to the story. Third, what impact does that have on people who you are expecting to be the guarantors of security, that things are being done in those are the kind of things that make me upset. But positive criticism is always welcome. And that's why, as Jackie was asking me before, one of the things I like, and that's for me a very good way of keeping in touch with the Kenyans and receiving criticism, is through the Facebook and Twitter, because I have a very active social media setup, and I get to hear what Kenyans are saying, but I get, where they are not happy, where they think we can do better, where they positive criticism, and reaching out to people. But it's those kind of things, that for me, I find, wrong, because I think journalists, political leaders, all people of influence really need to understand the position that they're in And the words that they state, or the things that they have huge ramifications. Right? So we need to all realize that we have a role in building our country. And some of the things that we say, we need to really watch. Yeah? If ultimately you know that what you're saying is right, go ahead and print it. But please, just do your homework. Yeah?
Okay. Mr. President, thank you very much for making time for us.
Asante
Really
sana.